Hey there, mom friend. Welcome to the MommAdulting podcast with your fellow mom friend, Michele. Here, we build a judgment-free community of millennial moms who are just trying to figure out all the things that come with raising tiny human beings, while also trying to figure out our own lives. In each episode, I share tips, stories, and a whole bunch of unsolicited advice on how to navigate some of the challenges we face as moms, such as defining our career path, nurturing our extra maternal relationships, meaning relationships that don't involve our children, making time for self-care, identifying what we need in our current season, and the list goes on. Now, mom friend, I don't have it all figured out, but I know that together we can start making progress. I like to take a moment before each episode to breathe and relax so we can jump in with clear minds and expectant souls. Now, let's take a deep breath in and out. Let's take our masks off. Let's turn our vulnerability on. Let's let our guards down. Let's raise our hearts up. Ready? Great. Let's jump in. I know you all are gearing up for the holidays. I'm so excited. So the boys and I, we've been doing holiday arts and crafts. My mom and I, we've been on phone calls and texting back and forth about our menu for our Christmas trip. So it's been bananas. So during my own busyness yesterday of trying to get logistics together for holidays, executing on some family plans to get us ready for the new year, my husband interrupted me and my forward-focused thoughts and asked me if I had seen the rash on our 20-month-old skin. Now, I was slightly irritated and defensive, really, because, he caught me quite a bit off guard. And I was like, well, didn't you bathe and lotion him the night before? And, because he had bathed and lotioned him, of course, I wasn't paying much mind. And anyway, so I went ahead and I looked at Ekalay's leg and realized that he did have a huge rash, actually on both legs. So I told my husband it could probably be an eczema flare-up, just put some eczema cream on it, call it a good old happy day. And so then I went back to what I was doing before I was interrupted. So this morning, when I was getting the boys ready for school, I looked at Ekalay's leg again, and I realized that whatever plans I had for the day were being tossed right out the window. And so, mom friend, I kept going back and forth in my mind. I'm like, okay, do I take him to the doctor? Do I not? It's not like he has a fever. He's still super active. His activeness is on 10. So he's fine, right? He doesn't have to go to the doctor. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Fine. Let me just call the doctor's office, describe the symptoms, see if I need to bring him in. Because maybe I don't need to bring him in. It could just be eczema. So while the boys were eating their breakfast, I called the pediatric clinic and described the symptoms to the front office manager. I was like, hey, he doesn't have a fever, but he does have rashes on both legs. And it seems like they've kind of spread to his feet. And she's like, wait, does he have rashes on his hands too? And immediately, mom friend, it hit me. I said, OMG, he has hand, foot, and mouth, doesn't he? And she was like, yes, ma'am, he does. Mom friend, you should have seen my face. Forget about my plans being tossed out the window. They were basically just completely thrown out. They were set on fire. It was, there was no going back. So it's one thing if it's bacterial, because they can prescribe antibiotics, in 24 hours, he can go back to school. But when it's viral, we just have to wait that thing out, which means it really could be like a whole week. Thankfully, Covenant, my 4-year-old, well, almost 4 years old, he didn't have any symptoms, so I took him to school. Plus, he straight out said, "Mommy, I don't want to stay home today." And I looked at him and I said, "That's fine with me, son." But a little bit of unsolicited advice, mom friend. Keep your kids in their routine as much as you are comfortable with doing so. I've seen memes on social media and even heard people say or ask, like, why do parents take their children to daycare if they're off? My simple response is, why not? So, mom friend, if you take off, that does not mean that your child has to take the day off too, unless you just want them to, which is absolutely fine. And if you have 2 or more kids and only one is sick, it is totally okay to keep the others in their routine. Ultimately, the choice is yours, so don't allow anyone to rob you of your authority to make such decisions. So, as I was saying with Ekele, his energy and activeness were not at all affected by this here hand, foot, mouth disease. It was actually pretty cute though. So when we got back home from dropping Covenant off, Ekele looked around the living room and he realized that it was just me and him. And he kind of let out, one of those cute little giggles. So in part, it almost seemed like he was saying, okay, what do I do now? And then it was like he said, oh, wait, it's you and me now. So, mom friend, I don't know how many kids you have, but I have asked a few of my mom friends who have more than one kid, like, how exactly do they go about learning the subsequent children? It might sound strange to you, maybe not, I don't know. But anyway, in my mind, it's like, I devoted so much time to baby number 1, and now we have a baby number 2. And so how do I give baby number 2 the same kind of time and attention that I gave baby number 1, even though baby number 1 is still in the picture? Anyway, maybe I'm overthinking it, maybe not. But anyway, so some of my mom friends, they told me, oh, my kids are nothing alike. They're so different. And then my questions are, well, how did you go about figuring out what they have in common and what they don't have in common? Like, do they like certain things because their older sibling likes them? Or do they actually like the graphics on their shirts, Or do you just put those shirts on them because baby number 1 liked the monster trucks and Cocomelon? I don't know if this is something that plays your mind, mom friend, but clearly I thought about it frequently. So for a while, I felt like I knew Covenant pretty well, but I didn't necessarily know Ekele as well. Sure, I had 2 more years with Covenant than Ekele, so of course that head start kind of helped me know how to deal with Covenant and how and the things that he likes. But now I wanted to know, how do I get to know Ekele in that same way that I knew Covenant when he was Ekele's age? So I'll admit, I have found it hard to give Ekele that individualized attention. And I feel guilty about it most times. It's like mom guilt forever rears her ugly head telling me I could and should do better. Does she ever talk to you? So here's a little unsolicited advice. Don't listen to her. Instead, recall to your mind the smiles you have put on your kids' faces and the laughs you have pulled out of their bellies. Remind yourself of the compliments you receive from others telling you that you're doing a great job. Recall to mind the sacrifices you make on a daily basis, mom friend, to be of service to them. Mom guilt is not a mom friend, and she has nothing on us. So back to Ekele. When he had that look in his eye this morning saying, "Hey mom, it's you and me today," I realized in that moment that I needed to not resist all the things this unplanned circumstance brought, but instead to embrace them. So, Ekele and I, we played, we ate, watched Paw Patrol and Gracie's Corner. We snuggled, we sang, and really, mom friend, we just enjoyed being present with each other. And I realized that it really doesn't matter if I put him on a shirt with excavators or one with dinosaurs. He's one. He's 1 year old. He doesn't care. What he cares about is exploring and being active and laughing and snuggling and feeling safe and seen. That's it. So, mom friend, if your child smiled at you today, you are doing great. If they laughed, you are doing great. If they reached out for a hug, you are doing great. You're doing great, mom friend, and no one can take that from you. So continue learning, continue growing yourself so you can give your kids and everyone else around you the best version of yourself. So as I wrap up, I will leave you with this word of scripture. Proverbs chapter 16, verses 1 through 3 and 9 in the ESV read, "The plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established." In verse 9, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." I am reminded of Michelle Williams' song, actually, called Yes. When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. So that is so true. When Jesus says yes, nobody can say no. And the reverse is also true. Sometimes we want to do something and the Lord says no. Whether the no is a not right now or just an outright, "I have other plans for you, daughter." But whether the answer of the tongue from the Lord is a yes or no, it is good. And it's better than what you had planned for yourself. We oftentimes think we know what we need, but I am so, so thankful that God sees beyond what we see, and his examination of our spirits yield a greater level of healing and restoration. Verse 3 reminds us to commit our work to the Lord. Give it to him. Everything that we think is ours really is God's. And basically, all we have is the authority to steward it all. So I'm about to insert a shameless plug. One of my friends, Ashley Toriak, she recently published a book called In Between the Lines of Faith and Work. The book is so good, y'all. And she actually narrates the whole thing in her voice. Absolutely amazing. But anyway, so I put a link to where you can learn more about the book and purchase it in the episode notes. But anyway, in the book, she talks about what lordship really means and what it should look like. Now, I personally was really able to relate to her struggles of trusting God with my plans because sometimes God gives that no. And for me, I feel like it's been more no's than what I would have liked um, throughout my life. But at the end of the day, it's like trusting God is truly about lordship. And if I say that Jesus is Lord, am I allowing him to be Lord of my day? Am I allowing him to be Lord of my plans? So, as a planner of all things, verse 9 really, really hits me hard because it reminds me that though I may plan my way, the Lord is the one who establishes my steps. So, I had to look up the word establish just to make sure that I fully understood what it meant. And my understanding was such an underestimate of the true gravity of the word. So, according to the good old Google Dictionary, establish means achieve permanent acceptance or recognition for. Mom friend, the Lord establishes my steps, your steps. He causes us to achieve permanent acceptance or recognition for something. When something is permanent, it cannot be undone. Let that sink in. So, a few tips, mom friend, as you are navigating plans interrupted. I want you to consider these three things. 1, write out your plan. Just because the Lord has the authority and the jurisdiction to say no does not mean that he does not want you to plan. Because we are co-laborers with Christ, which means that we still have a part to play. And the Lord is so faithful and so great to redirect us into something that is better and something that will glorify him. So in podcast episode 4 called Dreams, I actually touched on what it means to dream and how to make those dreams more tangible through your daily actions. So I highly, highly recommend that you go back and listen to it because there are definitely some jewels that can help guide you through your planning process. Number 2, after you write down your plan, give it to God on a daily basis. So I usually write out my to-do list every morning so I know how I want to focus my time and my energy. And sometimes I even do it the night before. That way I know, I don't have to think about it first thing in the morning. But I have come to the awareness that regardless of what is on my to-do list, again, God has the jurisdiction and the invitation to alter those plans as he sees fit. At the end of the day, mom friend, the life I live is to glorify him. So, not my will, Lord, but may yours be done. And number 3, embrace the Lord's plan. And I know that that's not always easy. I realized a little while ago that I tend to live my life in a place of resistance. So if you haven't already, go back and check out episode 3 called Valleys. There I talked about how our own inflexibilities tend to lead us to some of the lowest places we find ourselves in this life. But yeah, so I've learned from experiences that when I live in a place of resistance, I can no longer be present. And when I'm not present, I miss God's presence and ultimately miss the presence he wants to give me in that moment. I have to be honest, even though I would prefer for my child to not be plagued with the hands and the foots and the mouths, I am so thankful for the gift of bonding with him today in a way that affirmed both him as my baby and me as his mom. Wasn't that so good, mom friend? You have to tell me, are you a planner? Do you resist change every chance you get? After today's episode, are you committed to being more flexible? Also, mom friend, I need your help. There are other mom friends out there who need to be blessed by this message. Please share it with 5 of your mom friends. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. As always, I encourage you to grow a bit today so you can love tomorrow a little more. Until next time, make sure your shirt is not inside out and your skirt's not twisted. You got this, mom friend.